He was just 8 years old. Barefoot. Shivering. Standing at his grandparents' front door with tear-filled eyes and a Bible in his hands. Moments earlier, he had witnessed something no child should ever have to see. Inside the apartment they once called home, his mother lay motionless, riddled with bullet wounds. And the man who pulled the trigger? His own father. In the distance, neighbors recalled the desperate sound of a woman screaming, calling out one final time for help. Then came the gunshots. 1. 2. Then more. What began as a normal Sunday evening would end in unimaginable tragedy. She was a devoted mother. A self-made businesswoman. A daughter, a sister, a friend. Marquita McCleary Neroes had dreams. She had plans. She had a life. But all of that was stolen in an instant. This isn't just a story about murder. It's a story about love turned to control, about the dangers that hide behind curated social media posts, and the devastating price some pay for trying to leave. This is the story of Marquita McCleary Neroes. And the night her son became the only witness to the end of her life. Before we dive deeper into today's chilling case, we want to take a moment to engage with you, our viewers. If you find our stories impactful and want to help support the growth of our channel, please take a second to subscribe. Subscribing ensures that you're always updated with our latest content, and it helps us reach a larger audience, allowing us to continue bringing you fresh crime stories and detailed analyses every day. We genuinely value your thoughts, so feel free to leave your comments below. Share your views on this case, and don't forget to tell us where you're watching from. It's always fascinating to see how far our stories reach. By liking, sharing, and commenting on our videos, you play an essential role in expanding this community and raising awareness. Your participation makes a difference. Thank you for being part of this journey. Now, let's continue with the story. Marquita McCleary Neroes was born on December 13, 1991, in Dallas, Texas. From an early age, it was clear, she had a spark. The kind of energy that made people feel seen, heard, and inspired. She was raised in a close-knit, loving home, surrounded by family who believed in the power of hard work, faith, and perseverance. And those values followed her into adulthood. Marquita became a mother to 3 beautiful children. They were the center of her universe. Every choice she made, every late night, every early morning, it was for them. Whether she was helping with homework, celebrating birthdays, or just offering quiet encouragement after a tough day, Marquita mothered with intention. Her love was constant, fierce, and unconditional. But she wasn't just a mother. She was a builder, a woman with vision. With a passion for beauty and self-care, Marquita founded her own business, Everything That Glitters. It started as a hair and eyelash distribution brand, but it quickly became something more, a platform for empowering women. Through her work, she reminded others that confidence wasn't just about how you looked, but how you carried yourself. That independence was beautiful. That ambition was allowed. She often spoke about her dreams publicly, about building something bigger, about using her voice to motivate others, about turning pain into purpose. Her social media was filled with words of encouragement, behind-the-scenes hustle, and raw, real glimpses into the life of a young mother doing her best to succeed on her own terms. Marquita's journey was far from easy, but she wore her resilience like a badge of honor. She didn't wait for opportunities, she created them. She was more than her tragedy. She was a mother. A boss. A woman rediscovering her power. And just as she was beginning to reclaim her peace, her life was taken from her. To the outside world, Ashton Neroes was the definition of a devoted husband and father. On Facebook, he posted Bible verses and motivational quotes. On YouTube, he called himself the best dad, sharing videos that painted the picture of a wholesome, loving family. Photos of family outings, smiling children, and affectionate captions made it easy for outsiders to believe everything was fine. Maybe even perfect. But behind the filtered snapshots and carefully chosen words, was a much different story. Behind closed doors, their marriage was unraveling. Friends and family noticed the shift in Marquita. Her once bright energy dimmed around Ashton. The woman who had built a business from the ground up, who empowered others to find their voice, began to quiet her own. Reports would later reveal that Ashton had become controlling, emotionally unstable. The kind of partner who could appear calm in public but storm in private. There were arguments, growing tension, and at times, fear. At one point, Marquita confided in someone close that Ashton had pulled a gun during an argument. Fearing for her safety, and the safety of her children, she hid the weapon from him. A quiet but telling act. Not of defiance, but of survival. Still, Ashton continued to present the image of a loving, spiritual man. He smiled for photos. He posted about gratitude. But in the shadows of that performance, the foundation of their marriage was crumbling. Those closest to Marquita could sense something was wrong. They didn't always have the full picture, but they knew enough to worry. Because sometimes, what we see online, is only what someone wants us to believe. And what Marquita was living, was far from the picture-perfect life on display. For Marquita, the decision to walk away wasn't sudden. It came after years of trying, of hoping things might get better, of giving her marriage every last chance. But the truth has a way of revealing itself, and when it did, it shattered what little trust remained. Marquita discovered that Ashton had been unfaithful. For a woman who had built a life around family, loyalty, and love, the betrayal cut deep. And in that moment, she made a choice, one that takes courage, especially when children are involved. She chose herself. She filed for divorce. It was a turning point. A line in the sand. And for Marquita, it symbolized the beginning of a new chapter, one where she could reclaim her peace, rebuild her life, and protect her children from a toxic environment. But for Ashton, it marked something else entirely. After Marquita hid his original gun following a frightening argument, Ashton quietly purchased another, this time, a Smith & Wesson .40 caliber handgun. It was a calculated move. One that hinted at preparation, not protection. As Marquita prepared to start over, Ashton was building resentment. And the mask he had worn so carefully on social media began to slip. In the days leading up to the tragedy, he posted something chilling on Facebook. Never got closure, but I'll walk away a winner regardless. It didn't seem like a cry for help. It felt like a warning. The marriage was over. The divorce was in motion. But control, that was something Ashton wasn't ready to give up. And soon, his bitterness would turn deadly. It was Sunday, October 18, 2020, a day like any other in Mesquite, Texas. The sun was setting over quiet neighborhoods. Families were winding down, getting ready for a new week. For Marquita and her 8-year-old son, it was just another evening, until it wasn't. They arrived home together, stepping into the apartment they shared, the space that had once held promise, now filled with tension that had become all too familiar. What should have been a peaceful night quickly spiraled into something far more sinister. Behind the closed door of their bedroom, voices rose. The argument began, sharp, emotional, heated. Then came a sound no child should ever have to hear. Marquita's terrified voice echoed through the apartment. She screamed out a name, P. Her son's nickname. It was a desperate cry. A final plea. Then, gunshots. Not one. Not two. But several, in rapid succession. Her son, frozen with fear, ran. Barefoot, shirtless, trembling, he fled the apartment and into the night, searching for help. He found 2 neighbors in the parking lot and said the words that would shake the entire community. I think my dad shot my mom. Back inside, Ashton Neroes calmly walked out of the apartment, showing no signs of panic. No visible remorse. To onlookers, he looked almost detached. As if nothing had happened. He took his son, still in shock, and placed him in the car. No words of comfort. No explanation. Just silence. They drove for a short time before stopping at Marquita's parents' house. Ashton walked the boy to the front door, handed him a Bible, and simply said, "I love you." Then he left, leaving behind his son, his marriage, and the irreversible damage he had done. It was the last moment of a day that began in routine, and ended in heartbreak. By the time police arrived at the apartment complex on Oates Drive in Mesquite, the damage had already been done. Inside, they found Marquita McCleary Neroes unresponsive, her body riddled with gunshot wounds. 8 bullets had torn through her, leaving a total of 16 wounds, entry and exit combined. The shots were concentrated in her upper torso, abdomen, and arms. There was no sign of a weapon. No indication she had fought back. It was not a struggle. It was an execution. Neighbors stood outside in disbelief. Just minutes earlier, they had watched Ashton walk out as if nothing had happened, calm, collected. A man who had just taken the life of the woman he once promised to love and protect. But Ashton didn't run. That same evening, hours after the shooting, he drove himself to the Lou Sterrett Justice Center in Dallas. There, he approached a deputy and said the words with a chilling clarity. "I killed my wife. I murdered my wife." There was no attempt to hide, no fabricated story. Just a confession, simple, direct, emotionless. And just before turning himself in, Ashton had made one final post on Facebook. A cryptic message that carried the weight of everything he had done. "Never got closure, but I'll walk away a winner regardless." For investigators, it wasn't just a confession, it was premeditation. And for Marquita's family, it was a cruel final insult. What had once been the image of a loving marriage was now shattered beyond recognition. A mother was gone. A son was traumatized. And a community was left asking how no one had seen it coming, until it was too late. In the weeks that followed Marquita's death, the courtroom became the place where truth would be laid bare, and justice would be pursued. Despite his confession at the jailhouse, Ashton Neroes entered a plea of not guilty. His defense claimed the shooting wasn't premeditated, that he hadn't meant to kill Marquita, that it was, somehow, a tragic accident. He took the stand himself, offering a fragmented and inconsistent version of events. He spoke of a dark room, of reaching for divorce papers, of Marquita allegedly lunging toward the wall. He said he fired blindly. That he didn't even look at her. That the whole thing felt like a nightmare. But the forensic evidence told a different story. There were no bullet holes in the walls. No signs that shots had been fired into empty space. Every round struck Marquita. Each one deliberate, each one fatal. The pattern of the wounds, the concentration in her upper body and arms, suggested not panic, but purpose. The jury was presented with a choice: convict Ashton of murder, or reduce the charge to manslaughter. They deliberated, weighed the evidence, and came to a decision. Guilty. Ashton Neroes was convicted of murder. He was sentenced to 50 years in prison, and ordered to pay a $10,000 fine. The judge also added a deadly weapon finding, underscoring the severity of the crime. Later, Ashton appealed the conviction, arguing that the prosecution failed to prove intent. But the appeal was denied. The court found the evidence to be overwhelming: the confession, the preparation, the social media posts, the physical proof. It all pointed to one truth. This was not a moment of emotional impulse. It was a decision. And now, Ashton Neroes would spend the next 5 decades behind bars, while the woman he silenced would never get the chance to speak again. In the wake of the tragedy, the echoes of Marquita's absence were felt most deeply by the ones she loved the most, her children. 3 young lives, now forever changed. Their mother, taken from them in the most violent way imaginable. Their father, now serving a 50-year sentence for her murder. In an instant, their world was split in two. With nowhere else to turn, the children were taken in by Marquita's parents, Mark and Shaka McCleary. Grieving their daughter while stepping into the role of full-time caregivers, they faced an unimaginable burden, one they never expected to carry, but accepted without hesitation. The community rallied behind them. A GoFundMe campaign was launched to help support the children's future, starting with a modest goal of $10,000. What followed was an outpouring of love and support from strangers, neighbors, and friends alike. Donations came in. Messages of sympathy and strength poured through. The fund surpassed expectations, not just in dollars, but in compassion. And yet, no amount of support could erase the pain. Birthdays would pass without her smile. Milestones would come and go without her voice cheering in the background. For her children, the loss was not just emotional, it was foundational. A mother's love, her guidance, her presence, gone. But even in her absence, Marquita's legacy lives on. In the strength of her children. In the resilience of her parents. In the story that now serves as a painful but powerful reminder of how quickly love can turn into violence, and how important it is to protect those trying to break free. She should still be here. Raising her children. Building her business. Living her life. Instead, her memory must now do the work her voice can no longer do. Marquita McCleary Neroes wanted what so many others want: peace, freedom, safety. She was ready to walk away from a marriage that had turned toxic. She was making plans for herself and her children. She was choosing life over fear. And for that, she paid the ultimate price. Her story is not just about what happened to her, it's about what happens far too often, behind too many closed doors. Because the truth is, no one should have to die trying to leave. Domestic violence doesn't always look like bruises. Sometimes it looks like control. Like silence. Like fear that builds slowly, quietly, until it explodes. And by then, it's often too late. Marquita did everything right. She spoke up. She sought distance. She tried to protect herself and her children. But it wasn't enough to stop a man who had already decided he would rather destroy than let go. If you or someone you love is living in fear, don't wait. Speak up. Reach out. You are not alone. Help is out there, and there are people who will listen, who will believe you, and who will fight to keep you safe. Marquita's voice was taken, but her story remains. And through that story, she continues to speak, for every woman who's ever been afraid to leave, for every child who's watched violence unfold, and for every family who's had to pick up the pieces after the unthinkable. Let her memory be a reminder. Let her life, not just her death, be the legacy we carry forward.